This episode of SESSLER'S Something is brought to you by Lightness of Being. Deal with it. Hello, everybody. Well, that was a fun week. Yeah, I know some of you out there were hoping that I might be responding to the responses after my God of War review, but I'm just kind of done with it. The past few days has been a Lewis Carroll-like journey into the gaping maw of a large cross-section of the English-speaking world. And really, it comes to me that there are certain social pathologies that can't be debated. And I really don't feel like getting any more blood money off of something that was pretty noxious that was happening in the comments down below. So you guys go have your fun. I'm going to move on to the other, far more interesting controversy of the week, which was EA, SimCity, servers. Gosh, wow, that didn't really work out probably as intended. It is still one of those head-scratching things. There's been a lot of statements. In fact, really all of the public statements have been coming out of Maxis, which gives the impression that Maxis, at least publicly, is saying that a lot of this is on them, which I'll be honest is a little surprising. But we'll go ahead and take everyone at their word. But the tone that you tend to get out of this is this kind of strange, low self-esteem argument, like we were completely surprised that people wanted to play our game immediately after purchasing it. And it really has been a little on the head-scratching side. I mean, SimCity is probably one of the best-known gaming franchises, period. We haven't seen a new one in 10 years. It's available. I mean, when people buy it, they don't go, oh, I'll get to it in a couple weeks from now. They wanted to play with it and do all that. And for there to be that much of a problem on the servers, there not being enough servers, was a little bit surprising. A lot of this really does come down to that always-on DRM. I've said some things in the past, I think I've upset some of you about EA and the DRM, but this is how I feel about this always-online thing. It's not going to go away. That I'm fairly certain of. You know, there's nothing very explicit from Sony about how that's going to work with the PS4. I bet we're going to get probably nothing that explicit initially when we finally find out about the new Microsoft console. But in many ways, I think you should expect that there will be some degree of that functionality that's going to be happening with the games. Given that this always online DRM is probably never going to go away, it does put a burden upon the publishers to make sure that it does not intrude upon the playing experience, or at the very least facilitates a playing experience, which is definitely not what happened in the first few days of the SimCity launch. I don't really know how much of the game was so unique that it had to be sort of put out into the wild for all of this to have been discovered, but there is enough of a track record with the Diablo 3 launch, with World of Warcraft all those years back, that, you know, problems are going to occur, and you should try to mitigate those problems as much as you can at the beginning. The people who are playing that game right now, who are buying it day one, are your loyal, enthusiastic fans. And that's, I think, the other thing that happened here. You know, when we see issues sometimes with Valve, which it's not the same kind of always online, or with Blizzard, I think it's different when it's EA because they are so bad at their messaging when it comes to many things, including the microtransactions. As I've said before, I don't have a fundamental issue with the microtransactions, but whenever confronted with something like that, or day one DLC, the answers that come out of EA can be so kind of shocking and alienating to their core audience. Yes, they have investors. They need to keep those investors happy. But I do believe that there's a way to straddle the middle so as not to look like every maneuver, even when it's a legitimate mistake, isn't some arch attempt to try to soak money out of their fan base. On the flip side, obviously, I think sometimes there's issues where the gaming community, after last week, I don't know exactly what that defines, don't understand that these are businesses and they are going to find ways to make money, and there should be some happy medium. Perhaps in the way that these large companies speak to their community is a little more consistent with how they're speaking to the larger business world. Bring that community in. Let them have a better understanding of the way in which you can make money and not completely screw over your players all at the same time. I really think that EA's reached a point. How comical it can be at times is remarkable, but they need to do something about their image and their brand, because as going forward, I think there is legitimate suspicion about more and more of their products. Well, they are offering a free game to pacify people, which has at least made me think that perhaps now I might finally get through Lands of Lore 3. All right, question time. This was the one question underneath last week's SESSLER'S something that didn't have to do with the server problems with SimCity. So here it is. Over the past few years, we've seen a dramatic rise in Western RPGs, especially with Bethesda's success of the Fallout and Elder Scrolls franchise. As a result, it seems the JRPG genre many of us grew up with is dying out. Even with the recent release of Ni no Kuni on the PS3, it doesn't seem to be getting the attention it deserves. What fate do you think the JRPG genre has in store for the future? Thank you, the Raging Peen. Mr. Peen, will you rage on? I think one of the key reasons that JRPGs seem to be dwindling is that the Japanese game market, which used to be very, very supportive, obviously, of JRPGs, has become so much smaller, it really can't sustain a ton of releases. And yes, there's always been interest in the West on JRPGs, but it was small, it was niche, it really couldn't support what the budget is for these types of games. I think the big thing that has to sort of happen within the JRPG is to look a little bit outside of themselves. The recycling of tropes, the recycling of characters, the seemingly adolescent nonsense that runs through the majority of them isn't really that appealing. And then you add in the controls, which are pretty oblique for someone who's used to the games that are playing out in the West, that something that changes, something that's a little bit more accommodating to a larger base would definitely make them more successful. And I don't think that necessarily means that it undermines what is so appealing about the JRPGs in the first place. I love Ni no Kuni. I agree with you. It's not getting a ton of attention. I don't know if it's getting a ton of sales, but that is getting close to what should happen. And to be honest, I just don't see another occurrence of a game like that anytime soon. All right. Feel free to put more questions down there about something that's happening in the gaming industry. I will answer them. And I have full confidence something will happen between now and next week. I'll probably have poo somehow on my shoe. And we can all chat about it.